I never thought that saving a stranger on a rainy night would completely change the course of my life. Everyone has their own love story, but mine. It's the kind that feels like it was written for a drama series. A story between a quiet doctor and a dangerously cunning billionaire who faked an illness just to steal my heart. He was the kind of man other women could only dream about. But there he was, silently standing outside my tiny clinic, pretending to be hurt, just to have a reason to see me. Not because he was sick. Not because he needed help. But because he wanted me to be the one to care for him, even if it meant faking a wound. My name is Claire Bennett. I was just another exhausted resident working endless night shifts at St. Mary's Hospital in downtown Chicago. My eyes were sunken from sleep deprivation, and my hands were always dry from the constant hand sanitizer. That night, the rain was pouring like a broken sky, and all I had was my thin lab coat pulled over my head as I walked home. I was halfway across Jefferson Avenue when I saw him, lying on the sidewalk, completely soaked, unmoving. His skin was pale, his shirt clinging to his chest from the rain, and sweat beaded across his forehead despite the cold air. I didn't even think. Instinct took over. I knelt beside him, checked his pulse, and hailed the nearest cab. The driver hesitated at first, but when I barked, "He needs help now," he pulled over without another word. I had him taken straight to my small private clinic, only a few blocks from my apartment. When he finally opened his eyes, he just stared at me. There was no confusion, no panic, just a strange calmness. Like he had known I would be there all along. "What's your name?" I asked gently, still in doctor mode. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that sends a chill down your spine. "I'm your first free patient, doctor," he said. That threw me off. His voice was smooth, confident, like he wasn't the kind of man who ever found himself helpless. There was a sharpness behind his gaze, like he was reading me, calculating something. I brushed it off, gave him a quick examination, bandaged a small scratch on his wrist, prescribed him some meds, and walked him to the door. I had no idea that the man I just treated, that mystery patient who'd collapsed in the rain, was actually Damon King, the CEO of Kinwell Corporation, one of the most powerful healthcare conglomerates in the country. And that little collapse of his. It was all a setup. A performance. Just so I would notice him. I didn't expect to see him again. People come and go in the clinic all the time, patients I stitch up, treat, and forget. That's how I survive emotionally in this job. You do your part, you let them go. But 3 days later, he returned. This time, it was a cough. A cough? I repeated, trying not to raise an eyebrow. A dry one. Very concerning, he said, his expression dead serious. I stared at him. He wore a tailored grey coat, his shoes spotless despite the rainy pavement outside. This was not someone who stumbled off the street. He was far too polished. "Your lungs are clear. Oxygen's perfect. No fever, no inflammation. Maybe some hot tea and Netflix will do," I said, handing him back his chart. "You're fine. But shouldn't we double-check?" "For peace of mind," he asked, his lips curving ever so slightly. "A full-body scan, maybe." I let out a soft laugh. "Nice try, Mr. King." His eyes narrowed with amusement. "You remember my name?" I didn't answer that. Truth was, I'd Googled him the night he left. Damon King. Billionaire. Kinwell Corporation. Philanthropist. Cold-hearted negotiator. Known for hostile takeovers and building hospitals like they were Starbucks. Why was someone like him pretending to be sick just to come here? Still, I stayed professional. I asked no questions. Until the third visit. He walked in limping. Pulled something at the gym, he claimed. I didn't even hide my sarcasm. Should I call an ambulance this time, or will a Band-Aid do? And that's when he dropped it. The act. Just a little. "All right," he said, slowly sitting on the exam table. "What if I said I came here because I wanted to see you?" Silence. I paused, pen in midair, not looking at him. "Then I'd say that's an expensive way to flirt." "I have the money," he replied calmly. I looked up. He was watching me, not with hunger, not with arrogance, but something softer. It was strange, seeing someone so powerful, so controlled, look at me like that. Like I was something rare. "I don't do relationships with patients," I told him. He nodded. "Then I'll stop being a patient." And just like that, he got off the table, picked up his coat, and walked out. No prescriptions. No excuses. Just that infuriating smirk on his face. The next few weeks were quiet. My shifts got longer, the clinic got busier. I pushed Damon King to the back of my mind, tried to convince myself that whatever that was over. Until he sent flowers. Or rather, donated flowers. An entire garden of rare blue orchids, delivered not to me, but planted in the clinic's back courtyard, now suddenly turned into a space I didn't even know I needed. Attached was a single card. For the doctor who saved strangers in the rain. No name. But I knew it was him. I didn't know if I was angry or flattered. So I did what I always do. I ignored it. Until one night, he showed up again, not with a fake cough or a twisted ankle, but with blood on his hand. "This one's real," he said, voice low. And it was. A deep cut along his palm. Clean, precise. Looked like a glass injury. I cleaned it silently. Stitched it. He didn't flinch. "You're not going to ask what happened," he murmured, eyes locked on mine. "I'm your doctor," I replied. "Not your girlfriend." He laughed softly. "Not yet." That moment. I don't know why, but it stuck with me. Maybe it was how he said it, not cocky, not demanding. Just as certain. That night, when he left, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about a man I shouldn't be thinking about. A man who made up illnesses just to see me. A man who, despite his power and wealth, looked completely alone when I stitched up his hand. After that night, something in me shifted. I began to notice things I hadn't before. The way his cologne lingered in the room even after he'd left. The warmth of his skin under my gloves as I cleaned the wound. The way he looked at me, not like a man used to getting what he wanted, but like someone who had waited a long time for something he couldn't name. And yet, I fought it. I buried myself in work, filled every shift, stayed late, slept less. I told myself this was just a passing distraction. A phase. I wasn't about to fall for a man like Damon King. But he wasn't done with me. A week later, I got a call at the clinic. It was his assistant. "Mr. King has asked for a private consultation. He's unavailable to come in. Can you make a house visit?" I should have said no. Every part of me screamed that I should. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when it comes wrapped in mystery and charm. I agreed. I told myself it was because he was a VIP client. That refusing might get the clinic bad press. That I was being professional. But the truth was, I wanted to see where he lived. That night, a sleek black car pulled up outside the clinic. The driver didn't speak. He just opened the door and handed me a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside, a note written in the same slanted handwriting as the flower card. "I promise I'm not faking this time. D." The car drove for nearly 30 minutes, winding through the city until it stopped at a penthouse building overlooking Lake Michigan. The kind of place that screams money before you even step through the door. When I walked in, the elevator opened straight into his home. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Clean lines. Cold tones. Expensive silence. And him. He was sitting on the couch, shirt unbuttoned, blood seeping through a towel pressed to his side. I rushed over. "What happened?" "Kitchen accident," he said with a wince. "Turns out even billionaires shouldn't be trusted with knives." "You really should stop hurting yourself just to see me," I muttered, peeling the towel away. He smiled through the pain. "I didn't. This one's genuine, I swear." The cut was deep, longer than I was comfortable treating outside a hospital. But he insisted. "No hospitals," he said firmly. "Only you." So I stitched him up again. Carefully. Quietly. And the whole time, his eyes never left my face. When I finished, he didn't thank me. He just asked, "Do you always keep this much distance from people?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "You wear professionalism like armor," he said. "Like you're afraid someone might actually reach you if you take it off." "I'm a doctor," I replied quickly. "Keeping distance is part of the job." "No," he said. "It's part of your survival." His words hit deeper than I expected. I packed up my kit in silence, trying not to let my hands shake. Then he said something that nearly stopped my heart. "Let me take you to dinner, Claire." I laughed, more out of disbelief than humor. "You really just don't quit, do you?" "Not when it comes to something I want." "And you think I'm something you can just have?" He stood then, closing the space between us. His voice was softer now, almost unsure. "No. I think you're something I have to earn." For a moment, I didn't say anything. I didn't move. Then I picked up my bag and walked to the door. But before leaving, I turned back and said, "Try not to stab yourself again. I might not make house calls next time." He smiled. "Then I'll find another excuse." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, his eyes, his words, the quiet sadness in his voice. I knew I should stay away. Men like Damon King don't belong in the world I live in. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. And I hated that I didn't hate that feeling. The next morning, I tried to forget it happened. I buried myself in paperwork, back-to-back patients, phone calls, broken printers, spilled coffee, the chaos of an ordinary day. But in the quiet moments, between patients or during a silent elevator ride, my mind kept drifting back to him. To his words. To his eyes. To the way he said my name like it was something he'd been rehearsing in his head for years. By evening, a delivery arrived. A single brown paper bag with my name scribbled on it, and inside, a warm bowl of chicken soup. Homemade. No note. Just a receipt with the kitchen staff's signature from a five-star restaurant Damon apparently owned. He remembered I skipped dinner. I told myself it was just a gesture. Nothing more. But I heated it up anyway. And ate every last spoonful in silence, alone in my apartment, trying to convince myself this wasn't dangerous. But it was. A man like Damon King didn't do anything without a reason. If he wanted something, he got it. And for some strange, terrifying reason, he wanted me. The following week, he didn't show up. No phone calls. No messages. No flowers. And it bothered me more than I was willing to admit. Then, one night, I came home to find my clinic door slightly open. My heart stopped. I slowly stepped inside, every muscle on edge. But the room was lit with soft golden light, and there, on the middle table, was a book. An old, leather-bound copy of The Anatomy of the Human Heart, the exact edition I had once lost in medical school. Inside, a note. "You dropped this 10 years ago. I've been holding on to it ever since." I froze. How did he know? I ran my fingers along the pages, memories flooding back. My name was still scribbled in the margins. This wasn't a copy. This was mine. That meant he had seen me, long before I ever noticed him. The next time I saw him, it was because I went looking. I told myself I just needed answers. That I deserved to know why he was doing this. Why me? Why now? His office tower rose like a glass blade into the sky, intimidating and cold. I had no appointment, no call ahead. But the moment I gave my name at the front desk, the receptionist's eyes widened. He said if you ever came, to send you straight up. The elevator felt like it took hours. My heart was racing by the time the doors opened. He was alone, standing near the window, back to me. City lights casting shadows on the floor. He didn't turn around. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said quietly. "You've been watching me since med school." Just. "Yes." "Why?" He finally turned. And the look in his eyes wasn't just longing. It was something deeper. Something raw. Because you saved someone I couldn't. I blinked. What are you talking about? He stepped closer, slowly, like he was revealing a secret buried so deep it hurt to say out loud. My mother, he said. She collapsed on the street one night. No one helped her. People passed by. But you weren't even a doctor yet. Just a student. You called an ambulance. Stayed with her. Held her hand. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't know that was you, I whispered. But I knew who you were, he said. I never forgot. And I promised myself, one day, if I ever found you again. I looked at him, heart pounding, and finished the sentence for him. You'd make sure I couldn't leave. He didn't deny it. I know it's selfish, he said. But I've built empires, saved lives with money, fixed everything with power. And yet, I still couldn't forget the girl who gave me the one thing I couldn't buy, hope. I didn't know what to say. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't just obsession. This was love, twisted and delayed, buried under years of silence and success. And I didn't know whether to run from it or fall into it. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. That night, I stood there in Damon's office, staring at the man who had quietly watched me from the shadows of time, never intervening, never intruding, until now. And even though everything in me warned that this was dangerous territory, I still found myself whispering, dinner. Just one. His expression didn't change much, but his eyes, those stormy, unreadable eyes, lit up just enough to make my chest tighten. I'll send a car, he said, his voice almost too calm. I can find my own way, I replied. And for the first time, I saw a smile that didn't belong to the CEO, the strategist, or the man who always had control. It was something softer. Almost shy. The restaurant he chose was quiet, hidden in a narrow alley lit by warm string lights. No photographers. No red carpet. Just music playing softly, a fireplace flickering in the corner, and one single table set for two. You own this place too? She asked, half joking. He shrugged. I didn't, but I bought it this morning. I almost choked. Why would you do that? So no one else would book the table. I stared at him. That's insane. Efficient, he corrected, sipping his wine. I shook my head, trying not to laugh. You really don't hear how insane you sound, do you? I just know what I want, he said, leaning forward, and I hate wasting time pretending I don't. I looked away, suddenly feeling too exposed. He had that effect, like he could peel back every layer of me just by breathing in my direction. We talked. Really talked. About things I never share on first dates. About my dad, who died when I was in high school. About how I used to fall asleep in the library during finals. About how I hated hospitals at first but stayed anyway. He listened. Closely. Intently. Not like he was trying to find a weakness, but like he genuinely wanted to understand what made me, me. Then, toward the end of the meal, he looked at me with such quiet certainty and said, Claire, if I told you I want more than dinner, what would you say? I swallowed hard. I'd say this is too fast. And I'd say I've waited years. My chest tightened again. This feels like a movie. No, he murmured, reaching across the table, brushing his fingers against mine, it feels like fate. After that night, something between us changed. He stopped pretending to be a patient. He didn't show up at the clinic anymore with fake symptoms. Instead, he showed up in other ways, unexpectedly but meaningfully. A warm cup of coffee left at my desk before a long shift. A new water heater quietly installed in my apartment after I told him mine was broken. A small bookshelf, custom-built, filled with the exact medical journals I'd mentioned once in passing. But the biggest surprise came one afternoon, just before I was due to meet him for lunch. I stepped into my clinic and found the staff buzzing with excitement. There were boxes labeled with the Kingwell logo, filled with brand new medical equipment. Ultrasound scanners. Sterile surgical kits. A brand new ECG machine. What is all this? She asked, stunned. One nurse beamed. They said it's from a private donor. Anonymous. But I knew. I knew exactly who it was. And that night, when I confronted him, he didn't deny it. "You said you didn't have the funds for the upgrades," he said, almost casually. "So I fixed it." "It's not your job to fix my life," I snapped. "No," he agreed. "But it's my choice to support the woman I—" He stopped himself. But I already knew the word he hadn't said. Love. I wanted to push him away. To keep the distance. To remind myself of the boundaries. But every time I tried, he was there, calm, steady, unapologetically sure of me. And maybe, just maybe, I was starting to believe that being loved like that, so completely, so deliberately, wasn't something to fear. It was something to hold on to. Even if it terrified me. 2 days passed. Then 3. And just when I started to feel the silence stretch too long, my phone lit up with a message. "Emergency. Come quick. It's Damon." My heart dropped. No context. No details. Just those 6 words. I grabbed my bag and coat, rushing out the door like instinct had taken control again. The same instinct that once made me kneel beside a stranger in the rain now had me running into the lion's den. When I reached the penthouse, the elevator doors opened into chaos. 2 house staff members met me at the door, whispering. He collapsed in his study. "He won't let anyone touch him. He keeps saying, 'Only you.'" I didn't think. I ran. And there he was. Damon King, usually composed, polished, untouchable, now half sprawled on the floor, pale, chest heaving, hand pressed to his ribs. His eyes locked onto mine the moment I stepped in. "Claire," his voice was hoarse, ragged. "It hurts." I rushed to him, dropping to my knees, checking his pulse. His heartbeat was rapid, borderline erratic. His skin clammy. His breathing shallow. This wasn't a game. This wasn't one of his fake injuries. "What did you feel?" I asked urgently, sliding my stethoscope out. "Sharp pain. Right here." He pointed to the left side of his chest. I froze. This could be anything. Anxiety. Heart issue. Pulmonary embolism. A clot. I rattled through every possibility as I checked his vitals. "You need to go to the hospital," I said. "No," he whispered, grabbing my wrist. "Please. Just you. Damon, this is bigger than me. I'm not equipped here. You need. I trust you more than anyone." The way he said it wasn't just about medical help. It was something deeper. A plea. A confession. A surrender. Against every protocol I'd ever been trained to follow, I stayed. I ran tests. Checked everything I could on site. I called a private cardiologist I trusted and had him arrive quietly, under the radar. Damon refused to leave the building, and I didn't want to risk a full-blown media circus if someone spotted him in a hospital gown. Hours passed. The episode stabilized. The cardiologist left, saying stress and exhaustion were likely the triggers. Damon would recover, but only if he truly rested. I stayed that night. Not because I had to. But because I couldn't walk away anymore. At some point, he woke up on the couch, blankets wrapped around him, his eyes searching the room until they landed on me. "You're still here," he murmured. "I should be furious," I said softly. "You scared the life out of me." "I didn't plan this," he whispered. "But maybe I needed you to see that I bleed too." The room fell silent. He sat up slowly, wincing slightly, and looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him upright. "You've always seen me as powerful, haven't you?" he asked. "The man who never breaks. Never bends. But the truth is, Claire, I've been breaking since the day I saw you again." I didn't know how to respond. My mind was screaming to stay rational, to keep space. But my heart, it was already halfway gone. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached into the drawer beside the couch and pulled out a small box. Not a ring. A key. "This is for you," he said. "To come and go as you please. No expectations. No rules. Just stay when you want." Leave when you need. My fingers brushed the cool metal of the key, and I knew this wasn't about controlling me. It was his way of giving something up. Power. Pride. Walls. He was opening a door. And not just to his penthouse. To his life. To his heart. I didn't take the key that night. But I didn't walk away either. I sat with him until dawn, his head resting quietly against my shoulder, the city still asleep around us. And in that silent moment, I realized something terrifying and beautiful all at once. This wasn't just a love story. This was a collision of two people who were never supposed to find each other, but couldn't stop crashing together. I thought that would be the peak of it. The silence. The softness. The safety I found in his arms that night. But Damon King was never the kind of man who let things sit still for long. 3 days later, he asked me to meet him again, not at the penthouse, not at the restaurant, but at his company headquarters. It was the first time I'd entered his world during business hours, the first time I saw him surrounded by men in suits, briefcases clutched tight, heads slightly bowed when they passed him in the hall. They all moved quickly, like the air itself belonged to him. But when he saw me, he stopped. He smiled. And in that moment, I wasn't standing in front of the CEO of Kingwell. I was standing in front of the man who once bled into my hands. The man who remembered the exact soup I liked on rainy nights. The man who gave me a key I still hadn't dared to use. He guided me into a conference room, but it wasn't like any I'd seen before. There were no contracts. No lawyers. Just a long table, candles, and a small black velvet box in the center. My stomach tightened. Damon. He raised a hand gently, motioning for me to sit. No pressure, he said. Just a conversation. I sat at. The chair felt too large beneath me, the room too quiet. He reached for the box and opened it. Not a ring. Not yet. Inside was a folded document, its header crisp and simple. Marriage agreement. My heart stopped. I know this isn't the way people normally do this, he said calmly, but I'm not normal. And this, what I feel for you, it's not normal either. It's not passing. It's not impulsive. It's deliberate. Strategic. Permanent. I stared at him, unsure if I wanted to scream or cry or laugh. You're proposing a contract. I'm proposing a partnership, he replied. Not because I doubt the emotion. But because I want you protected. I want you equal. I want this to be clear, no games, no ambiguity. And if I say no? He hesitated for the first time. Then I'll wait, he said softly. And try again. As many times as it takes. I looked at the document. It wasn't just about assets or power. It had clauses protecting my clinic. A full scholarship fund in my name for underprivileged med students. Healthcare policies rewritten with my suggestions highlighted in yellow. He wasn't buying me. He was offering me his empire. And asking me to place my name beside his. I stood up slowly, blood rushing to my ears. You think I'm someone who can be reasoned into love? I said, my voice quiet, but firm. That I'll sign a contract and suddenly become yours. His jaw tightened. No, he said. I think you're someone who's been alone for too long. Someone who's never had a man look her in the eye and say, I'm not leaving. I blinked. Because somewhere, deep in the part of my chest I tried to keep locked, that hurt. He stepped closer, careful, like I might run. I love you, Claire. The words landed like thunder in my bones. And if I have to sign papers, burn contracts, or kneel in the street, I will. I just need to know if there's a part of you that believes this could be real. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't feel it. But because I felt it too much. That night, I sat with the contract in my lap. My apartment felt too quiet. Too fragile. I thought about all the things I'd fought to protect, my independence, my career, my name. And then I thought about Damon. The man who never begged for anything in his life until me. This wasn't about money. This was about belonging. About a man who would fake an illness, fake an accident, fake everything just to win the chance to be real. I didn't sleep that night. The contract sat unopened on my kitchen table, untouched but impossible to ignore. My fingers traced the edge of the page more times than I could count, but I couldn't bring myself to sign it. Not because I didn't want to, but because once I did, there'd be no turning back. By morning, I had made my decision. I didn't call. I didn't text. I simply walked into his building, took the elevator to the top floor, and entered his office like I had every right to be there, because somehow, I finally believed I did. He was on a call when I walked in, his voice low and commanding. But the moment he saw me, he froze. His assistant, seeing the look in his eyes, quietly stepped out and shut the door. I stood silently for a moment, then took the contract from my bag and laid it on his desk. Signed. He looked at the paper, then at me. Are you sure? No, I whispered. But I've never been more certain of anything that scares me this much. He closed the distance in 2 steps. Took my face in his hands. And kissed me. Not like a man claiming a prize. But like someone finally kissing the answer to a question that had haunted him for years. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed. In his world. In his arms. In a space I once thought I'd never belong. The wedding came 2 weeks later. Quiet. Private. Hidden from tabloids and headlines. Only a handful of people knew, his sister, his closest advisors, and a small circle of mine. He kept it that way to protect me. It's not the flash I want, he said. It's the vow. I walked down the aisle in a silk dress I didn't choose, in a venue I didn't recognize, to marry a man who could buy countries, but only ever wanted me. And when he slid the ring onto my finger, he leaned in and whispered, "This isn't the end of the chase, Claire. It's the beginning." I smiled, breathless. "You're insane." "I warned you," he murmured. "You married a man who faked a heart attack just to get your number. What did you expect?" At first, it was perfect. I moved into his penthouse. My clinic received anonymous donations every week. I had a security team that shadowed me discreetly. And every night, Damon came home like he couldn't believe I still existed. But the cracks came quietly. Late-night calls he wouldn't explain. Meetings that lasted too long. Moments when I caught a flicker of something in his eyes, something dark. Protective. Almost violent. Then came the night I opened the wrong drawer. I was looking for a pen in his study. Instead, I found a thick file. My name was stamped on the front. Inside, photos. Of me. From years ago. Leaving the hospital. Walking home. Sitting in a coffee shop reading. Some of them were old. Some, from just weeks before we met again. I stared at them, heart in my throat. My hands shaking. When I turned around, he was there. Watching me. "I was going to tell you," he said quietly. "Tell me what?" I whispered. "That I've always had eyes on you. Even when I shouldn't have." My voice cracked. "Why, Damon? Why follow me like that? Why keep these?" He stepped forward slowly, every muscle tense like he was bracing for impact. "Because the first time I lost someone I loved, I didn't see it coming. I swore that would never happen again. I thought if I watched you, I could protect you." "This isn't protection," I said, voice trembling. "This is obsession." He didn't flinch. "I won't apologize for loving you in ways the world doesn't understand." I backed away, my pulse pounding. "You had me. You have me. You didn't need to stalk me." "You don't understand," he said, suddenly hoarse. "There are people who would hurt you just to get to me. I've made enemies, Claire. Powerful ones. Watching you wasn't about control. It was survival." I froze. Because behind the intensity in his voice, I heard fear. Real, raw fear. "What are you saying?" "Just." He ran a hand through his hair, stepping closer to me like he was fighting himself with every step. "I'm saying," he murmured, "that someone knows you're my weakness. And they are coming. For a long time, I couldn't speak. I just stood there, my fingers still touching the photos, my heartbeat echoing in my ears like the ticking of a bomb I didn't know had already been lit. They are coming? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Damon nodded, jaw clenched. They know you're my wife now. The press doesn't. But in the world I come from. The real world underneath all this marble and glass. Word travels fast. What do they want? Not what, he said darkly. Who? They want to find my softest point. And they already have. He looked at me, and in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before, not fully. Damon wasn't just rich. He wasn't just powerful. He was hunted. Because you don't build an empire like his without making enemies who want to burn it down. And now they had a way in. Me. That night, he moved me to a new location. No discussion. No arguments. He simply packed a small bag, guided me to a waiting black car, and told me, "You'll be safe here." We drove an hour outside of the city, through winding roads and thick woods, until we reached a secluded estate nestled behind stone gates. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Cameras watched every inch. Inside was quiet. Warm. Too calm for what I was feeling. "I'm not a prisoner," I told him sharply, standing in the doorway. "No," he said gently, "you're my world." "Then stop locking me away like a secret." He looked at me, pain flickering across his face. "I'm not locking you away. I'm trying to make sure you stay alive." For the first time, I realized what love cost Damon King. It wasn't just vulnerability. It was risk. It was war. The next morning, I woke to silence. Too much of it. I walked through the estate barefoot, sunlight pouring through the windows, dew still clinging to the grass outside. It would have been beautiful if it didn't feel like a cage. Then I found a room I hadn't seen before. His room. The one he stayed in when he didn't sleep beside me. On the desk were scattered papers. Maps. Confidential letters. Surveillance photos. Names with red ink circling them. Details of men I'd never heard of except in whispered news reports about international arms, offshore laundering, private wars. He wasn't paranoid. He was surrounded. And I was his one weakness. I turned slowly and found him standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "You shouldn't be in here," he said, voice low. "You should have told me all of it," I said. "I was trying to give you a normal life, Claire. You married me." "I know. You dragged me into this." "I didn't drag you," he said, stepping forward, his voice suddenly thick. "I begged you. I opened every piece of myself and begged you to love me. And now that you do, I will burn down the world to keep you safe." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him that I was a doctor, not a pawn in some billionaire's underground chess game. But then he said something that silenced everything inside me. "They've already tried once." I froze. "What?" "The accident outside your clinic last week, it wasn't random. That man didn't just lose control of his car. They were watching. Testing." My throat closed. I remembered the screech of tires. The way the bumper nearly clipped my coat. The driver never looked back. Damon stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. "I wasn't going to tell you. I thought I could neutralize it. But they've gone too far." I backed away. "So what now? I live here forever. Hide." "No," he said. Then he reached into his pocket and held out another envelope. This one with my name. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a photo. Me. Standing outside the clinic. And a single sentence typed at the bottom. "Tell your husband the game starts now." For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. I stared at the photo like it might disappear if I blinked hard enough, but it didn't. There I was, frozen in time, one hand adjusting my scarf, the other reaching for the clinic door. A completely ordinary moment, captured by someone who wasn't supposed to be watching. The message below the image burned into my mind. "Tell your husband the game starts now." I looked up at Damon. They are threatening me to get to you. He didn't flinch. They are warning me. That's worse. Who are these people? His jaw tightened. They are ghosts. Shadows. Some of them used to be friends. Partners. Others I inherited from enemies. And they want what? Your company. They don't care about the company, he said quietly. They want to see me crumble. To lose something I can't rebuild. His eyes met mine. Me. They wanted him to watch me fall. And for the first time in my life, I truly understood the kind of danger I was in, not the kind with sirens and hospitals, but the kind you never see coming until it's already in your veins. I could have run. Packed a bag, changed my name, disappeared into some quiet coastal town where no one knew who Damon King was. But I didn't. Because love doesn't hide when it's threatened. It fights back. I want to help, I said softly. Damon shook his head instantly. Absolutely not. You can't protect me from everything. I can try. And if something happens to you instead? Just. Do you expect me to just sit here behind bulletproof glass and wait? He opened his mouth to respond, but the words never came. Because deep down, he knew I was right. I was already in this. And the only thing worse than danger was being powerless inside it. So we began to plan. He brought me into the fold. Not everything, but enough. Enough to know the names of those watching us. Enough to know who had the reach. Enough to know where they'd strike next. We moved again, this time to an estate in another country, under new identities. His security team operated like a private army, and I was briefed every morning like I was joining a mission. Some nights, I slept beside him. Other nights, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd lost myself in a man whose love came wrapped in war. And then, the first Real hit came. It was 2:46 a.m. A loud crack of glass. The alarm. Gunfire in the distance. Claire, stay here. Damon shouted, grabbing the weapon hidden under the bed frame. No. Claire. But I was already moving. Not away, but toward the danger. Because someone had breached the perimeter. And they weren't just here for him anymore. I ran down the marble hallway barefoot, heart pounding, every shadow stretching too long. 2 guards were down by the east window. Blood. Smoke. Sirens too far to matter. Then I saw him. A man, dressed in black, standing in the library. Holding something. Not a gun. A phone. Recording. Me. The second our eyes met, he sprinted. I chased. Not because I was trained. Not because I was brave. But because something inside me snapped. They'd made me a target. They thought I'd break. But I wasn't just a wife. I was his wife. He didn't get far. The security team tackled him at the gate, and within minutes he was disarmed and unmasked. A boy. Barely 20. Shaking. Terrified. Just a messenger. Damon stood over him, jaw clenched, knuckles white. Who sent you? He asked. The boy stuttered, you already know. Damon crouched, face inches from his. Tell them this, he said coldly. If they want war, I'll bring fire. But if they touch her again, there won't be enough left of them to bury. The boy nodded, blood dripping from his lip. They are watching. Always. Then he smiled. And for the first time, I felt it. This wasn't about power anymore. This was about me. That night, Damon didn't sleep. He paced, hand running through his hair, whispering things to his advisors in languages I didn't understand. His world, the one he kept carefully separated from mine, was bleeding through the walls now. And there was no going back. I stood in the doorway, watching him. I'm not afraid, I said. He looked up at me. His face didn't show relief. It showed something deeper. Guilt. You should be, he said. Because I've brought hell to your doorstep. And you still choose to stay. I'm not staying, I said, walking toward him slowly. I'm fighting. His voice cracked. With me. I touched his cheek. For you. In the days that followed, we didn't sleep much. Damon's entire team, security, legal, intelligence, began working in shifts around the clock. He moved like a man possessed, not frantic, but methodical. Cold. Focused. The moment that boy smiled after being caught, Damon knew this wasn't just another warning. It was a declaration. They weren't afraid of him anymore. But maybe they didn't understand what he became when he had something to protect. And now, he wasn't just protecting me. He was protecting us. I want to see the files, I said one morning, stepping into his strategy room. He barely looked up from the digital map glowing across the table. What files? The ones you don't want me to read. The ones about them. His jaw tensed. Claire. I'm not asking for permission. He exhaled slowly, closed the folder he was reviewing, and tapped a code into the screen beside him. Within seconds, rows of encrypted files flickered to life. I didn't understand everything, offshore transactions, dummy corporations, names with red tags and blinking alerts, but one folder made my stomach twist. Operation Belladonna. I clicked. Inside were surveillance photos. Not of me. Not of Damon. But of her. A woman. Elegant. Sharp eyes. Red lips. Always standing just a little too far behind the men in charge. Who is she? I asked, the hair on the back of my neck rising. Damon didn't answer right away. Then he said, her name is Alina Vale. She used to be my father's fixer. And my godmother. Used to be. She's the one who taught me how to lie. How to win. How to kill without pulling a trigger. I stared at the photos. And now she's trying to destroy you. He nodded slowly. Because I didn't choose her. I turned toward him. What does that mean? When my father died, she expected to be named as acting CEO until I came back from overseas and took everything. The board sided with me. Barely. And she never forgave it. And now she's using me to get to you. She's smart enough to know I don't break for boardrooms or bullets, he said quietly. But you? You're the one variable I can't predict. You make me human, Claire. I closed the file. Looked him dead in the eye. Then let's stop hiding. Let's bring this out into the open. Expose her. He looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. The plan was dangerous. Reckless. But it had to be. We hosted a charity gala, a Kingwell tradition, always broadcasted live. The media would be everywhere. The city's elite would be there, pretending to drink champagne while trading secrets with their smiles. And Alina. She wouldn't be able to resist. She taught me to never walk into a trap, Damon said as we dressed that night. She'll come anyway, I replied. Because she doesn't think it is a trap. I wore a gown the color of blood. Not out of vanity, but war. Damon walked beside me in a black-on-black suit, no tie, no cufflinks. Understated. Lethal. When we entered the ballroom, cameras flashed. I smiled. But inside, I was shaking. Because I wasn't just the doctor tonight. I was the bait. Alina arrived fashionably late. Alone. In silver silk. She looked exactly as I remembered from the photos, like someone who could kiss you on both cheeks while planning your downfall between sips of wine. Her eyes locked onto me instantly. And when she approached, it was with a smile so sharp I could feel it slice right through the air. So this is the girl who made the king fall, she said sweetly, taking my hand. I'm not the reason he fell, I replied, holding her gaze. I'm the reason he rose. Her smile didn't waver. But I saw it, the flicker. The crack. You're not afraid of me, she said softly, almost curiously. No, I whispered. Because you made one mistake. She raised an eyebrow. And what's that? You thought he was weaker with me. I stepped back just as the lights dimmed and Damon took the stage. Behind him, screens lit up. Files. Names. Transfers. Evidence of years of corruption, all linked back to her. She turned slowly, her spine stiffening. But Damon wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at her. For years, he said, voice steady, calm, lethal, I've watched you tear down everything my father built. You thought you could use the one thing I loved most as leverage. You were wrong. Gasps spread like wildfire. Alina turned to me. But I was already gone, escorted out by security. She would be arrested within the hour. Her empire was ashes before she even stepped out of the ballroom. Later that night, in the back of the limo, I sat in silence beside Damon. We didn't speak for a long time. Until he finally whispered, "You were incredible." I was terrified. Me too. He took my hand and kissed the inside of my wrist, right where my pulse was still racing. But you didn't run, he said. I told you, I whispered, leaning into him, I don't run. I fight. He pulled me close. Then let's never stop. For the first time in months, the world slowed down. Alina Vale was behind bars. The media painted her as a traitor, a criminal mastermind. Every network played the footage from the gala the moment Damon exposed her, over and over like it was a scene from a movie. But behind the headlines and flashing lights, we retreated into quiet. Damon and I moved to a private villa near the coast. No phones. No board meetings. Just the sound of waves and the smell of salt in the morning air. Some days we barely spoke. Not because there was distance. But because for the first time, we didn't have to fight. I'd wake up tangled in his arms, feel his breath against my shoulder, and realize this was what we'd been bleeding for. Not power. Not revenge. But peace. One evening, as the sun dipped into the sea, Damon cooked dinner. Yes, he cooked. Burned the garlic, forgot the salt, nearly lit his sleeve on fire. But he laughed through it, and for once, he looked like a man, not a king. I sat on the counter, sipping wine, watching him fumble with a pan, and I thought, this is the moment I'll remember when I'm old. Not the gala. Not the danger. This. After dinner, we danced barefoot in the kitchen. No music. Just him humming something off-key, spinning me slowly in circles like time had stopped caring. I love you, I said into his chest. He rested his chin on my head. I never knew how much I needed to hear that. Every time I say it, I mean it more. He kissed me then. Deep. Steady. Like a man finally allowed to breathe. We thought we were done. We thought we had won. Until the letter came. It was slid under our door. No stamps. No signature. Just 3 words, written in a hand I didn't recognize. Check your blood. That was it. Just that. Damon read it once. Then again. I felt the color drain from his face. What does that mean? She asked slowly. He didn't answer right away. Then he looked at me with a hollow sort of fear I hadn't seen since the night of the attack. Claire, he said softly, have you been feeling tired lately? Any headaches? Dizziness? Yes, but I thought it was just stress. Why? He didn't respond. He simply reached for his phone and dialed a number I'd never seen. Prepare the lab, he said coldly. Now. Full toxin panel. Blood, hair, tissue. I blinked. You think I've been poisoned? He didn't blink. No, he said. I know you have. Within hours, we were flown to a secured facility one Damon had apparently built for emergencies exactly like this. I was rushed into tests, FORs, scans. I kept trying to make jokes to lighten the air, but he didn't smile. Not once. And when the results came back, he didn't speak at all. I had to pry the file from his fingers myself. My hands shook as I read the words. Traces of compound LX-37 detected. Long-term exposure. Synthetic. Engineered. Rare. My throat dried. This wasn't accidental. This was planned. Who did this? I asked, barely able to breathe. Damon stood at the window, fists clenched, his back to me. When he turned, there was no emotion on his face. Just steel. It wasn't Alina, he said. Then who? He walked over slowly, took my face in his hands, and whispered the name I never expected. My mother. I thought I misheard. But Damon didn't blink. My mother, he repeated, almost like he hated the sound of the words in his own mouth. Margot King. I couldn't process it. This was the woman I'd seen in framed photographs, the regal figure in pearls, arms around a much younger Damon. The one who founded charities in her name. Who gave lectures on global wellness. Who once sent me roses with a note that said, "Thank you for making my son smile." You think she poisoned me? I whispered, my voice barely there. No, Damon said, his jaw tight. I know she did. He showed me the files that night. His team had pulled every piece of correspondence, every purchase order, every private courier delivery link to the estate. And there it was, months ago, while we were still in the city, a small vial of synthetic toxin was routed to the penthouse from a lab registered under an alias. An alias once used by Margot King's personal foundation. It was low dose, Damon explained quietly. Slow. Invisible. Enough to make you sick and question your own body. But not enough to kill. Not right away. I stared at him. Why? His hands trembled. Because she knew I'd never let go of you. And if she couldn't get rid of me, she'd make sure I lost you anyway. The next morning, we flew back. I didn't want to. My body was weak, my chest heavy, my veins still burning from the detox meds. But Damon was silent the whole flight, eyes fixed on the clouds like they were holding the answers. His mother lived in the original King estate, an old mansion on the hill that overlooked the city. The kind of place built for legacies, not people. She was already waiting when we arrived. Poised. Elegant. As if she'd been expecting us. Damon, she said, rising from the garden bench. You look tired. He didn't respond. He simply handed her the lab report. She glanced down at it, then back up, completely unshaken. So she knows, Margot said calmly. She's standing right here, I snapped. Her gaze turned to me, cold, unreadable. Then I suppose there's no point pretending. What followed wasn't a scream. Or a slap. Or a breakdown. It was worse. It was a confession. I did it, she said softly, folding her hands. Because I raised a boy who became a weapon. You were the one thing that dulled his blade. And I couldn't let that happen. Not when you were beneath us. I took a step forward, trembling. You tried to kill me just to own him. No, she said. I tried to free him. Damon's voice was low. You never wanted me to be human. No, she whispered, stepping closer. I wanted you to be king. He looked at her then, really looked at her, not with anger. Not even hate. But with grief. Quiet, devastating grief. I loved you, he said. Even when you stopped loving me back. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She simply turned and walked back into the house. As if the damage she left behind meant nothing at all. We never spoke to her again. The board at Kingwell quietly removed her from all honorary roles. Her name was stripped from every plaque, every wing, every award. She vanished from the press like she'd never existed. But the scar she left on both of us would never truly fade. Months later, when I was strong again, Damon took me back to the place where it all began. My old clinic. He'd rebuilt it. Quietly. Secretly. Brick by brick. But this time, it bore a new name above the door. The Claire Foundation. A place for women. For care. For healing. A legacy I never asked for. But one he'd given me anyway. That night, on the rooftop overlooking the city, he pulled me into his arms and said, You saved me once when you didn't even know my name. I smiled against his chest. And you ruined my life to make me your wife. He laughed. Worth it. Then, with his forehead pressed against mine, he whispered, "This time, we build something no one can burn." And for the first time, I believed him. Because love like ours, it doesn't end in disaster. It ends in empire.